I'm Jodie Foster, and this is my career timeline. Incredibly long career. I'm in 52 years in the film business. The only thing that I trust is to ask myself that question, is it true or is it not true? What color, what lens, is it authentic, and is it real?
Be a paleface, use Coppertone.
Yes, I was 3 years old, and I was the Coppertone girl in a Coppertone commercial, and it was on a boat in Sacramento, and I was wearing only a bikini. I was going to be made to do things that I didn't want to do, like wear a bikini top. I said no, and I didn't have to wear one. There you go. Napoleon and Samantha, that I guess was my second movie, and it was with the Lion. How did I become involved? I don't know. I guess I went on an audition, and then they cast me. I think that's all I remember. It was Oregon. It was really hot, and during the course of the movie, I was mauled by the lion, one of the lions. He picked me up by my hip, shook me around. The trainer eventually said, "Drop it," and he dropped me, and I went falling down a hill. That was the big experience from that movie.
That boy Mage, it really showed him.
Talking to me?
I became involved in Taxi Driver because I had already made a movie with Martin Scorsese called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. So he wanted to cast me for Taxi Driver, and my mom thought he was crazy because, you know, I really didn't look like a prostitute, and but he had a lot of faith in that I could transform, and I did it. It's hard to ask a 12-year-old how they found their approach to their role. I just read the script and believed in the character, and Robert De Niro at that time, he took me aside, and we did all these sort of elaborate improvisations, which I had never done before in my life. I realized for the first time that acting was something more than just being yourself. I remember seeing the movie for the first time and immediately saying, this is a great film. This is a great film. And it was much in the tradition of movies that I loved at that time, like, you know, Straw Dogs and Lenny. Those extraordinary movies from the 1970s, auteur-driven anti-hero films.
I don't know who's weirder, you or me.
I became involved with Q's because I ran after it. I said, okay, I want to do this. They said they don't want you. So I had to kind of beat down the door. Then they said they didn't like how I acted. So I had to come back. The director wanted me, but I had to come back.
The best you can do.
There was a real rape scene in the film, and that was difficult and traumatic especially for the men. I think very hard on them. There was a lot of crying from the guys, and I found myself in the role of making everybody feel better. While I was there, I met with a lot of people from rape crisis centers, and that kind of shocked me into having to create a character. So it was definitely a jarring movie for an actor.
Get out of here.
I'm trying to read.
Lamentate was my first feature film. I read the script immediately as an actress and said, I want to direct this movie. So I, once again, kind of banged down the door and told them, I will act in the movie, but I really want to direct the movie. They didn't really listen to me. And then finally, I was able to get the movie financed with me directing and acting the film. And that's how it happened. Part of it that I didn't really understand was the editing. So that was something that I had to think about. And I went into some cutting rooms in order to understand what editing was. The gift of being young is that you're kind of blind. And you don't 100% realize that other people are going to see your movie. You just do it for yourself. And I think that was the gift of making Little Man Tate at such a young age.
I love you, Mom.
I love you too, kiddo.
Killer is on the loose. A rookie FBI agent is on his trail.
I had to punch some people in the head to get Silence of the Lambs. I had already just won an Oscar, but the director I knew had in mind another actress. So I flew myself to New York, and I went to his office and asked for an appointment and said, I want to be your second choice. I have a lot of memories from Silence of the Lambs. Of course, it's the scenes with Lecter that are the most broiled into my memory. Anthony Hopkins we were cordoned off from each other because he was always behind bars or behind a plexiglass, and I was on the other side. And because the scenes were so long, sometimes they were 8-10 pages, we would do his side one day and my side the other day. A lot of the work that we did was directly to camera, so sometimes I just wouldn't see him all day. I would be looking at the camera and doing all of my lines to camera, but he would be some voice off in the distance, and vice versa. So it was a strange thing that all those scenes feel so intimate, and yet we couldn't see each other.
Never forget what he is. But he's a monster.
Became involved with Nell as a producer. The other producer, Renee Missel, and myself brought on a writer and developed the screenplay over many years. We really were in the Smoky Mountains, far from everything. We were an hour and 45 minutes from any kind of town, dry county, just a bunch of cabins, no restaurants, and we were there for months, 6 months of living in the woods. It's like no other experience I've ever had. I learned so much from making Nell, and I don't know that it's the favorite, everybody's favorite movie that I made, but I feel like for me it's my favorite performance. That's something that I'd never played before, and that's something that I am not. So I'm very proud of that performance, of the emotions of the character being more than just language. Contact was a big movie, a first really massive movie, where all sorts of different locations and elaborate sets and things like that I'd ever done, and it was amazing to be able to think about science. Carl Sagan was there. He had originally written the first screenplay before he wrote the book of Contact, and then he was there on set with us for the beginnings of it. In fact, he gave us a whole kind of billions and billions and billions class, like a seminar. So that was the best part of the movie.
Tells me that it was real.
Oh, I got involved with Panic Room because I got a desperate call from the first AD who said, "Oh my God, Nicole Kidman's knee is a problem. I think you need to come in and play the part of Panic Room." And then very quickly after that, I got a call from David Fincher. Isn't that crazy that that's how that happened? David Fincher is the most technically proficient and detail-oriented director I think any of us have ever met in our lives and will ever meet. And it was the longest shoot of my life. There was something that I really liked about the idea of a woman who was just recently divorced, and she has never lived alone, really. She's been, she went from her mom's house to being dependent on a very rich man. There was something about that, like a woman who was finding herself, who had been lost completely and who had no voice, and who suddenly finds the strength of character to become a hero through the course of the movie. Inside Man was easy. I read that script and said, I want to play that. That's kind of how it worked. Spike had this idea that they would spend a lot of time working on the stuff that had to do with the bank, and then they would spend no time on anyone else. So sometimes you'd have a long 6-page long scene, and you don't only get 2 takes, and even if you messed up, he wouldn't cut. He'd just like, keep going, keep going. So I had no idea what was going to end up on screen. There was something that I loved about her joyfulness in the middle of this bank robbery with all these bad people, and the fact that she was this corrupt lawyer that was there to fix everything.
Your Honor, you know about this hostage situation.
The Beaver, I remember where I was when I read The Beaver. I remember exactly where I was lying on that couch, and I said, wow, I've never seen anything like this, and I gotta make this movie. It's an insane premise, and it's an allegory that I felt was the story of my life at that particular moment, and maybe it is a midlife crisis. That was tough to convince people that it was not a comedy. And that really was what I spent the whole movie doing, I think, was trying to let people understand that this film was a tragedy, and that the tone of the film had to shift with his psyche. The man is fighting with the puppet. He's fighting with himself. And for me, that's just, the strongest moment in the movie. That's standing behind the monitor and watching that. I felt like I was so moved that I understood that the film was working. I was looking at things to direct in television, and I read the book of Orange is the New Black, and I said, I want to do this, and they said, sorry, it's taken. So I spent a little bit of time banging on Genji's door to try to be able to do the pilot, and they didn't let me do the pilot. And then eventually I came around and said, okay, well, I'll just do an episode on the show because I love the book so much. I was really happy and proud that they gave me the episode that had to do with Laverne Cox's character, her transition from being a fireman to being a woman and a prison inmate. I love dramedy. I love tragic comedy. The best thing that tragic comedy can be is a way of having us understand our suffering and our moments of suffering in a way that really makes fun of ourselves. And I love kind of combining those two things.
Pay close attention to your stool.
I don't think I could miss it.
Sarah will be part of our trial period.
I was having lunch with Cindy Holland, who's the head of Netflix, and bemoaning the industry and how the feature business was annoying. And I said, I want to make features on streaming. And she said, I think I've got something for you. My approach to directing that episode was unlike many of the Black Mirrors. I wanted it to be completely and totally grounded in now, grounded in reality, so that the science fiction of it felt like it's only 5 minutes from now. If you look at something like USS Callister, that's about like sort of Star Trek world, a nod to sort of design and futurism, which I didn't really want the Archangel episode to have.
It's completely safe.
You know why they call him Everest?
I came to Hotel Artemis because I read the script in a mysterious way, and I tracked it down once again. I'd be beating people over the head and said, I want to play this character. And they hadn't even released the script yet. So I knew the producer, and he said, okay, well, when we finally release the script, we'll consider you. I loved working with Drew Pearce, first-time director, who I felt had a full vision of the film. And his full vision of the film is articulated in every ounce of the movie. I loved playing a character that was just raw and real and a total transformation. That's just a way that you normally would never see me and would have never thought about me. And there's something that comes from that physicality of the character of, the yellow teeth and the fat pad and the gray hair and, all those wrinkles, the way she walked, that allowed me to have a kind of transformation that I wouldn't have been able to have without the physicality of it. My balance has shifted in terms of directing and acting. It used to be 90% acting and 10% directing. I started when I was 25, 26. And now I think that's going to be shifted to the opposite. So I will be mostly directing, and every once in a while I'll act in something. And that feels right to me now. I guess the theme is that when I really live something, I smack people in the head in order to get it. I guess that must be my theme.